I'll wait for Scott.
Yeah, wait for me.
Frank,
Oh, Frank's off today.
okay.
Sorry.
Just make sure everybody's present. All right, then begin the meeting. First of all, let's review the agenda and any executive session. Are there any additions, corrections to the agenda?
No additions or corrections to the agenda, but I do have one item under executive session related to personnel.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot that the first order of business is to ask that any visitors sign in, please. I had a chance to do that. Thank you. Any other additions to the agenda or changes, concerns? All right. And we'll move into the approval of the minutes from October 10th board meeting, the evening meeting.
Move they be approved.
Okay.
Second.
Made and seconded for approval. Everybody have a chance? Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. At this time, any public comments on any items that are not on the agenda? Yeah.
Jan Klein. I have a question going way back. I've asked for this a couple times. But does the authority have a listing and keep a record of all allocations that have been given out to the sewer line?
Okay, I'm sure we can answer that one.
I defer to Pat to respond to that. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Is there, can I sometime pick up, not today, but can I pick up a copy of that, please?
It's a database with many properties listed, going back to...
No, I know that when they first signed the sewer agreements, I was on Salisbury board at that time, way in the 60s, and part of the agreements were that municipalities and the authority was to keep a record of allocations.
Okay,
Because there were
are you
40,000 gallons per
referring
day.
to the allocation that each signatory has with the city?
Yes, and how much,
Okay, I can get to that.
and how much LCA has, and
Yes.
how much has been allotted out up to date.
Yes, we do have a record of that.
I would like a copy of that sometime in the near future.
And we can do that? Okay, all right, fine.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay. Any other public questions? Yes?
And just some information, I guess, on I was reading about the blending and whatnot that might be going on in the future and all. We just hope that there'll be some little bit of an update on that before it goes over to what's driving it and what the thoughts are by this board. Thanks.
I'm sorry, would you say that again?
What your thoughts are by this board of the proposal for possible blending. I don't know if it's listed in here, but it'd be nice for the public to get a little information about this board before it goes over to the main Allentown and all involvement too.
Well, there has been a meeting set up in Allentown for November 9th, and I don't know if we have a time of that yet. I'm assuming it's a nighttime meeting.
It's 5 p.m.
5 p.m., okay. And Allentown is the driving force behind that, so we're kind of looking for that to be the place where we learn as many details as possible about before we deliberate on it at a later date. So we will talk about that at discussed it later, earlier meeting in executive session, but we are going to defer until after we hear from Allentown. I encourage everybody on the board and staff to attend that meeting in Allentown and learn from the people that really have studied the details of the blending concept and benefits and potential drawbacks of that. So then after we hear from that, if we have additional questions, we'll entertain those in an open discussion here at this board. That's how we're going to handle that.
And can I just clarify this? So it's in Allentown City Council chambers, correct?
It
At
is
5
yes.
o'clock?
It's at 5 o'clock, and it is being hosted by the Public Works Committee for the City Council.
Have the signatories been invited, Susan?
I'm not sure. We can certainly send notice out to the signatories about it.
Well, I think you can check with the city to see if they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't think we've gotten any type of a formal invitation, though we know about it.
I mean, it would make sense, right, from a system perspective to have all the signatories and the public involved in the dialogue. Is it a formal hearing or? No, it's a public.
It's an update.
Yeah,
It's an
public
update
update.
from the city staff to the
Okay.
Public Works Committee on the city's AO.
But it's during an Allentown council. I'm just trying to understand the form of the meeting. It's a special meeting or a?
It's a special meeting of the Public Works Committee, because the
Okay.
Public Works Committee is the group that is responsive to the administrative order. So it's a special meeting of the Public Works Committee scheduled for 5 o'clock, and then they have a Public Works budget meeting directly after.
Okay.
So,
And just
And that's
clarify,
today?
that is the primary topic of that is the administrative order, and the blending concept is supposed to be part of that discussion.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock today, or when is it?
November 9th.
November 9th.
Did they say a council chamber?
council members.
And so council was obviously invited. And so we'll find out if the signatories have been invited, and if they haven't been invited, we'll defer to Allentown to invite them, or we can invite them.
I think that we can certainly let the signatories know that LCA is planning to attend and encourage. It's a public meeting.
Right,
And we're all
right.
stakeholders in
Yeah,
the process.
okay. Yeah, it's really important to have everybody there to understand, the administrative order topic, given the watershed implications, and, to discuss the issue of blending. And will we have that out on our website so that the public knows about the meeting as well?
We can do that. Yeah.
Okay, any other public comments? All right, let's move on to number 5, action discussion items. We're going to start first with the finance administration and the 2017 budget. Distributed previously, and preliminary form was discussed at the last meeting in details, and everybody's had an opportunity to send their comments in so that staff can be prepared for today's meeting. So I understand we haven't got any comments from the public or from the board for further clarification. So at this time, we'll entertain motions or discussion on the topic. You have no presentation?
We have no presentation because we've already presented all the details, and the only thing that's new is I did provide an executive summary that kind of describes more of the strategic thrusts that are evaluated and included into the budget.
Lisa, and I appreciate you doing the summary. I think it was really helpful. Does the public have the summary? Okay. Could we just give the high level, just sort of exec crib notes of the assumptions under the budget once more, since we're voting on it today, and then if the public has any comments here before we.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'll defer to Ed on the financial piece of it, but going into the development of the budget, we were really focused on preparing a budget that met some basic financial criteria. Number 1 being positive cash flow, number 2 being meeting all debt service coverage requirements. And then the third one is sort of a new nuance that we've been talking about as a board, which is finding ways to limit the need to borrow in the future for capital improvements. So with that in mind, as a financial overlay or goal, we then looked at operational programs that we felt were important for our organization moving forward and building upon the goals that we've set out for ourselves for this year. And those programs fall primarily into 3 categories, one being asset management, the next one being environmental and regional leadership, and then the last one being organizational development. Under asset management, the focus here is on, first of all, finalizing our asset management program approach, which looks at our facilities in terms of their useful life and the risks associated with failure, and developing both preventive maintenance and capital investment strategies to mitigate those risks. For environmental and regional leadership, we've really focused our attention on the administrative order and the work that's required there. In 2017, the most critical piece for us to complete is the development of a plan, a capital improvements plan, that we will submit to EPA by the end of 2017. So we've included funds in the 2017 budget to help us get there, but also to begin doing some actual improvements that have been laid out in the plan to date, primarily refurbishment of the park pump station and some flow metering improvements, and then some work on the city system at Klein's Island wastewater treatment plant. And then the final area that we focus a lot of attention on is organizational development and preparing for the retirements that are going to happen either this year or next year, or really within the next 3 years. So we have some staff additions as well as some training programs and IT programs planned for 2017 that will help lay the groundwork for us to be prepared for those retirements to occur. And all of those kind of high-level strategies that we've been talking about throughout 2016 that roll into the budget preparation in the different categories. And on the back page of the executive summary is sort of a really high-level snapshot of the budget and the cash flows and capital expenditures that are included. And do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, without getting into the numbers again, I mean, as we talked about, we wanted to see positive cash flow. And across all 3 funds, we see varying degrees of cash flow that are positive. And essentially, what that means is, we've met our first criteria. We're actually going to have all 3 funds contribute something to capital to avoid having to use reserves or to borrow, although we are going to borrow, and I'll get into that. All 3 funds had some impacts of inflation and benefit inflation that was pretty significant, as we experienced a year ago. So that's repeating again in 2017, and that's baked into the budget numbers. Additionally, operating expenses, as we talked about, climbed a bit because we wanted to recapture and catch up on some of the things that we had not been able to do with severe cutbacks that we had in 2016. So all 3 funds have them kind of programs, preventative maintenance, capture of things that we're not doing. So that's all built into the operating expenses. And again, with that, you're still generating some positive cash flow. All the debt service requirements, the internal target of 1.20 are there or exceeded. We had redone all of the statements into a more, I'll call it, financial committee friendly manner that I think worked. So I'm trying to think what else. We will need to borrow. We set out that we will need to borrow 5.9 for some of the water projects, and we will need to borrow almost 11 million for the AO work on the wastewater.
Okay. All right.
Just one addition to that, because we did talk about it at the last meeting when the public wasn't present, that to meet the cash flow requirements and looking on the revenue side of things, we did incorporate the rate increases that are incorporated into the lease agreement with Allentown. So that's a total rate increase of 3.3% to the city division. The wastewater rates for the signatories are by agreement, so we don't have a lot of control over those, but those are calculated and included. And then additionally, we're projecting a 3% rate increase on the water rates in the suburban division. And we will come back after the budget is approved with an actual rate proposal, so you can see how that works in terms of the cash flow coming in on the water side.
Okay, we've had several opportunities to discuss the budget, so I think we're ready for a vote on this.
Motion to approve?
I would love a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Can I just just make a comment though? Because I don't know that we got a chance to hear from the public, but I would say that, I want to say a couple things. First, I want to thank Ed and Liesel and the staff for, all the hard work that they put into looking at all of the details and all of the, financial information, the slicing and dicing that we wanted. I think it was important. I think it will continue to be important going forward. Given the challenges that we have, particularly with the debt level, which are concerning, is very concerning to me, particularly on the city side, and the use of reserves and the dwindling of those, also very concerning from a sustainability perspective. And so this was a lot of work to get to the point where we really got a chance to look at this and understand where we were. And I want to thank you for that. That's not always easy or fun, but it needs to be done. And I think I would call this almost a stopgap budget, meaning, this is us getting where we have to go, but there's a lot of work that has to be done sustainably in the long term to get the debt level down, to get, the revenue generating, the ability to operate with revenues and not borrow. And so I would suggest that part of the next step is also getting a handle on the variances. We've seen a lot of very significant variances from our actual versus budget. We can't have that happen in this budget cycle if we're ever going to get off on the right, foot long term. And so I really hope that we are going to really nail down the analysis, on a monthly basis. And if the revenue is coming in better, then we should borrow less. And if the expenses are coming in higher, we got to find a way to bring that back in line with the year-to-date numbers so that we're not overspending. So I wanted to first thank everybody, and I think next step is with the strategic discussion we're going to have, we need to move towards, what is that sustainable financial model that, we're working towards beyond 2017, because I think there's a lot of, continued discussion next year about this. Thank you.
I did want to clarify that the ayes had it. So the motion has been passed. Again, the same thing, just reiterating, it's been a significant change since our previous budgets, and a great job moving forward, and we still have some more work to do, but we're certainly moving in a good direction, good pace. So, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, the only comment I want to make on the budget is I think that with the terrific debt load that we're looking at in the future, I think it's going to be unavoidable that we're going to have to continue to raise rates. I think our water and sewer rates are very cheap and inexpensive considering the service that we're getting. And I think the LCA is definitely going to have to consider larger rate increases in the next coming years so that we can have more operating revenue to fund our capital improvements rather than having to borrow. I just think the borrowing load is going to get too great, and we have to be prepared to just raise our rates higher to pay for that type of those capital improvements rather than just do all the heavy borrowing. I just think we have to raise, rates are going to have to keep going up, and they're going to have to go up steeper than I think they have been going up. But it's just, all I want to say is, for instance, our water rates, quick calculation is, average based on 15,000 gallons a quarter, and, $480 a year. With that count of gallons, people are paying about $1.32 a day for their water. And I think that's water and sewer combined, and $1.32 a day is pretty cheap. That's less than a pack of M&Ms for your water and sewer service. So I just think when you look at the larger picture, I just think our water rates and sewer rates have to continue to go up even more than they can, so that we can start paying for all these capital improvements rather than just relying on borrowing. Thank you.
I would not want to create a mass hysteria that we're looking at this tightly every year and make sure that we keep the rate increases as low as possible. Good management, good delivery. All right, let's move on to the next item, which is the goals and strategic plan, which is our yellow document. And any discussion?
Yes, and actually, Dina, Scott, Brian, your comments are perfectly lead to what's shown on the yellow sheets. And I didn't want to have necessarily a prolonged discussion today. What I wanted to lay out was this idea that we have now have a budget approved, and I thank you for that. We now have 2 months left in this year that we can take advantage of to develop our goals and plans for 2017. And instead of waiting until January to begin developing our goals, we should be starting now. And would like to understand how the board would like to be part of that process. And I think it would be, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I assume you don't want to be involved in the detail of how we're going to get to, from point A to point B. But it would be helpful to know from your perspective, where is point B? And so if the board is willing to have those kinds of discussions or would like to have those discussions, I just want to hear more from you about what format and how that would work. I think it's especially important in light of some of the comments that have been made already today that we really get our arms around in 2017, where are we going with big questions like our capital management strategy and what we're willing to borrow versus what we're willing to put into rates. How much are we covering with our rates versus the other strategies we've been talking about? So, and really the rate structure, we're going to do a rate study in 2017, so the design of our rates may need to change if our strategies are different. And those are all things that I think you or some of you might want to participate in.
And I think that's why the board is here, is that we have the strategic direction in mind and stay out of the weeds.
Right.
So I would encourage the board to be involved in the front end of that, maybe just through a workshop.
Yeah, I think we have to,
Sure.
we talked about this at the finance committee meeting, of really having a strategic plan put together. Obviously, we'll be part of that. And I don't know, we actually, this board's never really sat down and gone away someplace and talked about things like that, as opposed to just having discussions as we go.
Well, we need to do those meetings in public session, so that's always part of the,
Sure. No, I
like,
understand.
how do you facilitate that offsite or whatever? You still need to have them be, but I guess one of the other things too is I wanted to make sure that you all had the most current copy of our strategic plan statement. And I'm calling it a statement because it's not really a plan. It's a statement of our vision, mission, and values, and what we think our critical goal categories are. And this is, I think, a good place to start to validate, is this who we want to be? And if this is who we want to be, then how do we get there, or how do we define that we've gotten there? And the issue of key performance indicators on the financial side is what the finance committee has been talking about. But there's a lot of other indicators that we might have related to quality or value, and we should be talking about that so we can put some meat on the bones.
Yeah, so I would agree with you. I mean, I think that's a nice statement. And I guess from a process perspective, it should really work the same as any strategic planning process. And I agree with Ted that I think it's a good endeavor, and Brian, that we should undertake in a really systematic way. And that might be more than a meeting. And so I think it's a meeting with the public to understand if they agree with that statement. What are the values? Is it cost? Is it whatever it is? And us doing that at the same time where we come by either the confirmation of that or a different set of outcomes. And then we also are strategically planning the next step, and facilitators do this all the time. What are the actual KPIs, both financial and otherwise, because you can cost anything up, both leading and lagging indicators to say, here's how we're going to reach that, here's how we're going to measure that, and then the plan comes in underneath that. And so that might be more than one meeting, but I think it's a very systematic approach, a disciplined approach that we should have as a board, particularly given what I would call this stopgap budget, where we're jumping off and have had the conversations about what is sustainability. I think it would be a great endeavor, next step. And as you said, sooner rather than later, given we've got 2 months
Right, 'cause
left.
we're talking about sustainability, but it may mean different things to different
Yeah,
people.
absolutely.
I have other board comments, I'd like to give other people.
Just one thought, and it's one sliver of this, not all of it, but, under the asset management category, maintain an acceptable level of service, but then plan for the future. So I'm interested in how do we understand what the plan for the future is? I mean, so much of our conversation is around managing existing assets and optimization. But now, what in terms of water treatment and water supply capability is required in the area over what time span? And what is our proper role in planning for that? So that's a question. I'm guessing the reason to ask that is because it's someone else other than this entity that drives that. I'm assuming there's a regional plan or something like that. But that's where you'd start, at least, to try and get a feel for how the area is going to develop.
I've always looked at, looking at the existing situation and then forecasting where we believe things are heading. I'm talking more than just water and sewer, but what other driving forces are out there that might impact our business that we need to factor into our planning process.
Yeah, same thought. I mean, we're going to build a new town somewhere in the valley. I don't know.
Okay. But that's the kind of thing, it's important to say, yes, we see that future vision, and we're going to adapt to that or plan for that. So I think that's a great discussion to start with, is just where do we see the future lying and how do we impact that. Any other board members? Us, involvement?
I have a question. Is it possible to have a strategic planning session with a facilitator open to the public? I mean, obviously, if
No
you
choice.
have more than 5 people there, I think that's what should be done. A day.
We can certainly do that. I think that if we do it as a special meeting, we can kind of keep it focused on that topic. We have done also, in the past, it's been a little while, but we've done strategic planning sessions with public, more focused on the public and gathering that. So if we do it as a stepped approach where we're talking from the board perspective and then we're talking from the public perspective, we can do it that way too. Really, what I wanted to hear today was that yes or no, the board thinks it's something we need to do, and just in terms of your involvement, subcommittee versus full board, it kind of sounds like full board involvement is appropriate, but I'll have that validated.
One more suggestion, that an independent facilitator is always a good way to go too, versus because they can kind of keep control over the mix of the comments and the conversations, so that people that might be too quiet are brought out, and people that might want to say too much are held down, so it's a real good balance of everybody's input.
That's an important point. I think that there are facilitators that do this every day, and I think there are some that are more lean toward the public, engagement and dialogue versus, just an off-site meeting with the board of directors that are private. And I think the key there is getting that agenda tight, so that facilitator is managing getting to the end game. So there's a lot of really good facilitators out there that can do that.
Okay, you happy with what you need?
Yes, I'll put some meat on the idea.
All right, very good. Can we move on to the next topic? We have a resolution before us, 10-2016, number 2, which is the blue.
Brad, are you addressing the resolutions?
I can. The first one was handed to me by, this is not that atypical, we've been getting this a lot recently, of banks asking for a specific form of resolution. M&T even has a universal price code kind of thing on it. So I pulled it into our format and kept primarily your language. And the major reason for doing this is we've had a number of people change in these positions. So the signatures are down to like 2 people who can sign, and that could be problematic. So it's really just reflecting the current people in these positions. That supports approval of this resolution.
Any board comments? I need a vote.
Motion to approve.
One second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
The next two resolutions are for projects that I think that Chuck's involved with. We're submitting for potential grants with,
It's a Commonwealth financing.
yeah. It's not the same as Penvest then, is it?
No, it's not the same. It's a program for small water and sewer systems, and the value of the project has to be below $500,000.
Mhm.
And it's an 85% grant where we would match, we would be providing 15% of the funding. So it's a pretty low-cost application to put together and submit. So I figured I found two projects that were of far enough along in design that to satisfy the requirements.
And again, this is the format that they sent on and said it has to be in this format.
Yeah.
And we had to have one for each of these grant applications, so. And these are applications, we don't know whether we're going to get the grant or not.
That's correct. The projects are going to proceed regardless, they're in the capital plan, but it would be nice if we got one or both.
Can I just ask quick, Chuck, so this is so this is coming out of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's
Yes,
finance, so out of the Department of, but it's a grant that's coming directly from the state of Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And the grant, it costs, there's a $100 grant application fee. So there's minimal cost involved in submitting it, so it's worth pursuing, I believe.
Have we ever done this before?
This particular program, I'm not sure. I don't think so. We've done Penvest before numerous times.
And we've done 10 Works, and we've done some others, but I don't remember the Commonwealth financing.
Who decides whether we get the grant or not?
They have a board that meets in March. The deadline to submit this is the end of
And
this
what's the
month.
criteria?
They look at need. They apparently they do not look at income level. That they look at need. If the project is supported by like green technology, or if you have an asset management program, how you are benefiting your ratepayers. So there's different incentives, so we're doing some creative writing, and I think these projects should rise to some level, and I'm hoping we can get some money.
Okay, good. Thank you. We have two resolutions before us. Can we deal with one at a time?
Motion to approve resolution number 10-2016-3.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 10-2016-4.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, that was, there was no business under water, and we do have something under wastewater. The park pump station upgrade is the gray package. And
This is mine. This is, as Lisa mentioned earlier, in her talk about our strategic plan, that this is one of our high priority projects. It can be categorized as both asset management and environmental, in that this pump station is very important for the purpose of mitigating upstream sanitary sewer overflows. This pump station was originally built in 1983, and it was built as a relief pump station, and it was only operated during peak weather events. Now, with increased development, we're seeing this station operate daily. It's caused a lot of wear and tear on this station, and this station needs to be upgraded so that it continue to provide a level of service that we need throughout our system, and extend the service life, and also restore the station to its original design capacity, right now that the station is hampered in its capacity because of the wear on the equipment. And because of the importance of this station, this is definitely a very important upgrade. This project is consistent with earlier studies that Malcolm Kearney did in the year 2000, and also Arcadis, which Arcadis became, Malcolm Kearney became Arcadis in this year, another mechanical study of the station. And this is in their study, recommendation number for option number 3 that we're implementing. So what I'm asking for is authorization for design and bid phase services to award to Whitman, Requard and Associates. We received 3 proposals from pre-qualified firms. Whitman, Requard, which we are familiar with, they've done a lot of work for the city of Allentown. They submitted the most cost-effective proposal. They are a mid-Atlantic firm. For those not familiar with them, they employ about 650 people. They have the horses to do this job and to do it right. And so I'm recommending that we award the work to them, and that's for both design and bid phase. And the design phase is anticipated to be completed by the end of March. Now, we will have to get DEP permitting, which may hold up the beginning of construction. But we are going to apply for that DEP permitting as soon as we can for the mechanical upgrade of this station.
Where is the pumping station?
It's in the parkway. It's in the Little Lehigh Parkway.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful setting, yeah. Yeah, and its setting contributes to the criticality of the station in preventing upstream overflows.
It's right to the right of the main park entrance off of 15th Street.
Coming down the big hill there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the right, on the
Right, out the bottom.
I walk down there a lot, yeah.
Yeah, so this project involves replacement of pumps, replacement of
How big will
electrical
the project
controls.
be, do you anticipate? It's here someplace, I know.
About $2.5 to $2.8 million.
This will restore it to its original design capacity, so we're not
Yes.
looking at anything additional, but just getting it back up to.
That's correct. We're not looking at expanding the station now. That gets into planning areas with our
The
Act 537 plan and the SCARP program. So this is just to continue the level of service that we expect from that station and prolong the service life of that station.
Chuck, can I just ask a clarifier on that? Because I want to make sure I understand you. So originally it was designed though to be a backup and not an everyday,
Yeah.
but we're using it every day. Like you're
That's
restoring it
correct.
to its original design capacity,
Yeah,
it was
but-
only a backup. I'm not
Well,
sure.
the design, it has a pumping capacity, but that capacity historically was only needed during wet weather events.
Okay,
Now, that capacity is needed daily,
okay.
just because of development.
What is that
development
design
pressure.
capacity?
24 million gallons per day.
So there will be major improvements to this station later on when we develop the SCARP. Is that
Yeah,
right? I thought this
there-
was that part of that.
There's different options that Arcadis presented. One of the options was construction of another pump station in the vicinity of the same capacity or reasonably similar capacity as a Park pump station to achieve, I think, 42 MGD conveyance to the city of Allentown. So, yeah, I mean, this immediate upgrade will extend the service life for the next 30 years. We're planning. But any expansion of capacity will likely be a separate standalone facility and not a physical expansion of this facility.
A whole new station.
Yeah.
And that's part of phase 2 of our AO plan, sister pump station.
Right, this is phase 1.
Okay, any other questions?
Just one, just for sort of form and circumstance. If I wanted to track this project into the capital budget, where would I go find it?
The number of the project, Kevin, is, it has an identifier, S-15. You would go into the suburban sewer projects, and there's a tab for this one.
No, it's listed under 0. It shows 0 for 2017 in the capital budget.
Okay, yeah, I don't have that table in front of me.
So that would be, right? So did you say SDW 15? Yeah?
No, not WS.
Oh,
S for
okay.
sewer, yeah.
Oh,
I'm looking probably on
sorry.
the water sheet.
Okay, but this is, we were
But-
looking on this sheet for
Yeah,
the
you
2017.
shocked me.
Okay, sorry.
In the budget pack itself, it's on page 29, listed as park pump station rehab and improvements, and showing total project cost of $2,950,000.
Right, so 450 for 2017.
450.
Got it,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're recommending approval of this work? Any motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded for the capital project authorization design and bid phase of $302,755, which includes the professional services authorization to Whitman, Clark and Associates. All right, motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, is there a question? I'm sorry.
What would happen if you put a parallel line in down instead? Couldn't that eliminate some of the park pumping stations? Or would that be for additional capacity?
Got an answer? Whether it be for Chuck?
Well, I know that that was probably studied at one time, a parallel Little Lehigh interceptor. And I believe that the thinking was that the capacity would not be able to be high enough to satisfy the wet weather conveyance demands.
You mean you wouldn't continue to be able to develop Western Lehigh County?
I don't know if I go as far as saying that. I think to construct a parallel interceptor, it's a very environmentally sensitive area where you're along the parkway, and I believe it was looked at as very costly with all the environmental permits you would incur and the floodplain issues. That was looking as a very costly alternative to construct a parallel interceptor, look like you stated.
Yeah, a parallel line would not solve the problems that this job is planning to take care of. Parallel line would not bring the existing pumps back up to capacity. But that's something for the future, for future consideration.
Just want to let you know that in 1983, when they put that first pumping station in to solve the overflows upstream, which were horrendous, some gentleman in nice suits took me down there because I had a big mouth and was complaining, and took me down there and showed me and said, these two pumps are to handle it. This third pump is just for in case there's a problem that they could then take care of the problem. Now they use all three and they're worn out with pumping. I mean, how much money has been spent on that pumping station since 1983?
I don't have
Anybody know?
that answer, but I just want to clarify something. We operate 2 out of the 3 pumps. There's always a backup. Okay, and those pumps alternate. There's a lead, a lag, and then a backup pump. So we do not operate all 3 simultaneously. The station is not set up for that. It's also a DEP requirement to have a backup pump.
Well, I knew
So,
that, but
yeah.
yes. So you're telling me you're eliminating any possibility of a parallel line? That's what I get out of this.
I didn't hear that.
No, well, this project that we're talking about is just to restore the original design capacity of this station. Now, there may be other capacity pressures in the future that come that we have to do something else, but this is just to restore the station to its intended level of service. Okay,
Correct me if I'm wrong, we decided, I think the senators decided against putting in a parallel line. They're going to go with trying to control I&I and maybe even build some holding tanks, these flow.
Same thing you've been trying since 1972.
You know, I think the idea of parallel interceptors basically would be pushed right out of the discussion. That's what I like.
Are you referring to an interceptor upstream or downstream?
Western Interceptor.
So that would be prior to the pump station.
Pardon?
That would be before the pump station, not
Yes,
after.
yes.
Ron?
Some, yeah, but you've had I problems since 1972. That's what I'm,
Yeah, aren't you talking about an interceptor all the way from up here, all the way right down to the city sewage plant? That's what you're talking about, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay, John, you had a question too?
Yeah, just curious as far as you're gonna bring it back up to its capacity. What's its capacity now as far as pumping?
It's
Down to
around,
whatever.
around 20 million gallons per day.
Okay,
And
so
the
you
original
lost,
design capacity is 24, is what we lost, 4 million gallons per day.
and that's just because of the pumps weren't down or
Yes.
something like that? The impellers
Yeah,
are weak, and do you alternate from one pump to another just so they're all used equally?
yeah, we do. That's done daily.
Okay. And is this one of the main reasons why there are overflows in the interceptor because of this pump, let's say, or is there some other?
I don't believe so. But it's certainly not an optimal situation. But I don't believe that the performance of this pump station causes any upstream overflows. But we certainly want to address this issue before we see continued decline in pump performance.
And if it's the impellers, you can replace just the impellers, keep the motors and bring it up, or?
Well, the motors are, the motors, the pumps, they're old, and we're replacing them with entirely new pumps.
Okay.
Okay, so I didn't want to get, I was in the process of asking for a vote on this, but I had some questions, so we defer to the questions from the public. So we'll go back to the vote on this motion that has been also seconded. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. All right, we do not do monthly project updates at this time, but we do financials, but I don't think we did receive the financials.
Yeah, I was just gonna touch base on one, quite frankly, spent a lot of time on the budget, so, we're gonna just touch on, hopefully on the summary. Where we finished this September was, on a monthly basis, city division was behind on income.
John, sorry, Ed. Can you just verify that everyone has it?
Yeah, we sent by email in the chat. So you had to see it separately.
All right, I missed it. All right.
Yeah. It'd be great to have it all together so that you can not miss this stuff, but it was sent separately. Here.
Okay?
All right.
All right, go ahead, sorry.
Take two.
We're on the same page. So for the month of September, just for the month, I mean, city was below forecast of income, below on cash flows, and that was pretty much driven by the fact that somehow I missed salaries. When I phased salaries out, I said there was 3 in October and there was 3 in September. This is one of the things that we have to work on as we move into 2017. Well, our county process is really not, I'll call it, in tune with the sanctity of the month. They have over the years been able to just let things happen when they happen, account for them when they come in, and, and at the end of the year, then you worry about accruals and all that.
So, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand. So, and I think you touched on this before, but I want to make sure. So it was a timing issue and
This
it
is all
wasn't cut
timing.
off in a formal monthly
Yeah.
closing process. Did I hear you?
Yeah, well, there was 3 pays coming up.
Right.
The problem is,
But we're
I
not
said-
closing the books every month, so it somehow got carried over
This-
into another
Well,
month.
what I'm really trying to say is if you were gonna do it payroll, you would do it on a day's basis.
Yeah,
We don't do it on a day's basis. We do it on whenever the payroll is processed. So in September, we had 3 payrolls because of just the number of 2-week months, 2 weeks, right, okay?
So we were not on accrual basis even though,
Not till year end, and that's one of the things that we have to change the process. Because if we're gonna do what we're doing,
yes,
you
we have to be on accrual
treat,
basis.
you have to treat each month as a separate
Standalone.
closing,
Yeah.
standalone.
Is this
almost-
like the root of these variances that we're seeing, or?
Um,
Because they're so
that's-
big.
Some of that has played in, for instance, you had 3 bills instead of 2 bills, kind of thing, and there was some of that in the month. But the truth is, for whatever reason, when I looked at the phasing of September, it said the 3 pays is gonna be in October, so, and it wasn't, it was in September, I just caught the last pay, so. Now, what all that means is, well, we blew 1 month in another month, so it doesn't change the total year. But it affects the particular month. And so that was pretty much what drove September for the city. I mean, across the board, both in the city division and suburban division, revenues were up for the month. And as you look at year-to-date, I mean, across both funds, or both divisions, your income is higher than forecast, cash flow is higher than forecast on the city side. You're at 1.40 in debt service against the 1.20 internal requirement. On the suburban side, your significant variance on income. Cash flows are much better. Again, the internal DSR 2.29 is higher. So where we are at the end of September is we're in pretty good shape compared to what we thought we would be at on the forecast. But some of the things that we need to look at are this closing process, how we take care of items that come in sometimes twice during the month, that kind of thing. The other thing that I think that we're gonna need to do is, when I did the phasing of revenues and tried to link expenses to it, it was pretty much on a dollarized basis, and as I look at what that does, is it doesn't tie it enough to what's happened operationally. And I think when we do the budget for 2017, the next step on the budget after getting approval was, so I gotta work out some kind of phasing. And I think not looking at just revenue on a monthly split and tying it to operating factors is going to be the way that we have to go on that. And that will tie more of the revenue based on operations, that will tie, expenses in the same manner. But where we are at the end of September is, well, instead, we're okay with respect to forecast. So what I'm doing is trying to lay out what's going to be happening for the rest of the year.
Question, forecast is not budget.
No.
So when's the forecast from?
When's the forecast from? That was with the Q3 forecast that we did back in July. And essentially what the plan is to do quarterly forecasts. So, like we'll do a Q4 forecast, which will cover the rest of this year. Then we'll start doing the quarterly for someday. I'll get to what we're doing rolling.
Well, and I'm now concerned. I mean, I might, like we talked about the rolling forecast and everything, but now I'm concerned because of the deltas that are happening. That, you employ a rolling forecast and there really is no tying to a budget because you're constantly updating. It only makes sense if you're nailing it, right? So if I heard you right, it sounds like we're good on an annual basis, but we haven't yet, and I thought we talked about this a couple months ago, but maybe I misunderstood. You're now gonna, nail down the closing, get the seasonality or the timing month over month in place such that the annual budget will be you do it on a monthly basis that mirrors the actual activity so that we won't have these variances, actual
Correct.
versus budget on a
Correct.
monthly basis.
Well,
right?
I guess you won't
Okay.
have the timing issues. What you would have is something that would.
Oh, real variance,
Right,
that's what
a
I'm
real
saying.
variance, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Okay,
So
I continue to hear progress in analyzing our budget.
this is work.
I have a question, probably because I'm reading this wrong. You have actual forecast and variance. Now, the forecast let's take the city division, net income loss. Forecast is 500,000.
Lost.
Lost.
Right, 500,000 negative. What was that forecast was generated when?
That forecast was generated in July, actually, after the first half.
How does that compare with the budget? For the year?
The forecast was pretty close to the budget in total.
Would it be nice if we could see that? In other words, you have a forecast which is updated throughout the year, but how did it all compare with what we said a year ago? What was the budget for the year? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and I actually don't, given these variances, I think a rolling forecast is only meaningful if you're, really tight on that, but if it becomes so different, you should really almost abandon the rolling forecast and stick with the budget and make sure you're nailing down those variances.
You can have the budget back.
But yeah, I think it's been shorter than a year since we kind of recognized that the budget before was a straight line 12-month split.
Yeah.
And so we can't do that. We don't want to be doing that anymore. We want to be doing what you're talking about, which is forecasting real expenditures in real time, real revenue in real time. So we can measure against that when we have the new budget going forward. It'll be actually a
Yeah, I mean,
forecast of
generally
reality.
speaking, we're pretty close on some of the expenses, except for some timing. Again, the payroll thing came back to haunt me only because, for whatever reason, I looked at the calendar and got it wrong.
So October, really, really good month. We only had, right? We picked up the payroll this month.
Right.
But if you look at the suburban division, the net income or loss, the variance is phenomenal. Good, but I'm talking about either way, good or bad, why it's so big.
Yeah, and again, the thing that concerns me is, it's not so much, last year I were concerned. I think we're okay with some of the expenses, and as we get to what I would call a real good closing process that really closes the book, it still concerns me that when we did the phasing of revenue, we just kind of did that based on some history of dollars. Now you really need to tie that into operation.
All right, very good. Just to clarify, I did get this email, so just missed it.
And if you have really good eyes, pages 8 and 9 do show the same thing as our actual forecast and budget.
Okay, sorry.
So, but you need really good eyes to see it.
Maybe that's what we should have here, a little magnifier, as if you slide a page.
I apologize that I've got so used to it over 37 years.
Jeez.
We can certainly change that.
Any other questions on the financial review here? Okay. Can we move on to the system operations overview?
The operational report for September, you can see the effects of the drought that we've had the last couple of months. Charlotte Spring is down to less than 5.4 million gallons per day, which is substantially down from what it typically is, around 7.5 to 8 million gallons per day. Crystal Spring remains pretty much healthy as it always has, around 4. That's our limit to pull out is 4 million gallons per day. The plant itself, we produced 21.46 MGD of water, with almost 6 million of that going out here to LCA through the interconnect. As far as Central Lehigh Division, you take out the water that came from Allentown. The wells accounted for the other 3.8 million gallons per day of water production. And the smaller systems, all told, 12 other systems accounted for 0.19 MGD. Pines Island wastewater treatment plant, again, you're seeing the effects of the drought. We're down to 28.25 million gallons per day. We're typically around 30 to 31. That's a little bit of a comparison. Pre-treatment plant at 4.3, and the other smaller wastewater systems totaling 150,000 gallons per day. Precipitation for September, 3.4 inches of rain. Unfortunately, we had a couple near miss storms that didn't add up to anything that we could have used, we didn't get. Compliance reports to the city, we had 19. No NLVs, no SSOs, only one main break for the month, and that was in Suburban. Customer service phone inquiries, continue to mount at a tremendous pace, over 2,200 for the month. Water shut-offs, 249 total. Thankfully, there were no injury accidents. You can see the emergency declarations. We just added that from issues we brought up in the last couple meetings about having the ability to go out for repairs and such things that were over the bid limits. So those are listed now. As far as significant repairs, we're to the point of replacing the secondary digester cover at the Kleins Island wastewater treatment plant. That's hopefully going to get lifted either later this week or later next week, and it still has to get painted and electric connected and a couple other things. So that should be finished in November, we're hoping. And the remediation activities at Arcadia wastewater plant to address the cold water inefficiencies has begun as well. We're putting basin covers and immersion heaters in. Hopefully that'll be done in the next couple weeks as well. Like I said, no NOVs or no SSOs. And as far as the drought goes, we're still on the watch. We're producing monthly and weekly reports that are getting posted on the website. Hopefully those of you that have checked into that find them useful. And until we're actually lifted from the watch, we'll continue to produce those reports for everyone to see.
Any questions on the operating numbers?
I have an additional item to tack on.
Okay.
If you don't mind, please. Thought this would be a good spot to provide an update on our lead and copper testing that we talked about quite a bit this winter. And what I'm handing out is just a little bit of information to give you an update. We did have 12 customers participate in our testing program, and that's what's shown on the first graph. The yellow bars indicate homes that had lead service lines. The blue bars do not have lead service lines, and then the green bar is the EPA action level of 15 parts per billion. So
these were targeted customers, correct? Or did you install, or
no, these are customers who requested to be tested.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
So nobody reached the limit?
No. No. What's shown on the bottom chart are the samples that were taken as part of the actual official lead and copper monitoring of the city of Allentown that we completed through September. And if you recall that discussion, we take all of our samples and find the 90th percentile result. That's what we use to achieve compliance. And that 90th percentile result was 9 parts per billion, which is under the action level of 15. We did have one home that was over the action level in Allentown, and that's one that we'll follow up on and try to help them understand what's going on there.
There was just one home.
Mm-hmm.
Did we test any other homes in that area of that one home?
Well, all of the homes that were tested do have lead service lines, so they're already all high-risk homes.
Right.
So that's
Because that one is so much more
yeah.
over, but nothing else around there tested high. Was there a reason?
That's still under investigation. We're still
Oh.
working with the customers on what the results mean. So I just wanted to report out to you what the results were, so you didn't have that.
But very low response, given the very inexpensive opportunity to get your pipes tested to see if there's in fact any issues that need to be addressed, given the population.
Yeah.
And we did a tremendous amount of outreach, I think, with communication to the.
The back page shows you all 14 of our water systems that do get regulated individually. We report on them separately to DEP. So, and what the results, the 90th percentile results were for each of those. Our next steps are, actually, we had 3 customers that had lead test results above 15 parts per billion. I'm only showing you Allentown details because that's where most of the customer concern was. And so we'll follow up with all 3 of them. We'll update the website. And now that we're done with the monitoring program, the customer requested sampling can resume if anyone is interested.
Question. When you say you follow up with them, what does that mean?
Well, in some cases, we'll do some additional testing, like the test is taken on a first draw, so a 6-hour stagnation period before we take the sample. We may do a flush sample, so have them flush and do another test, and then if the results go down, then we can provide additional education about what they should do to reduce their exposure.
I suppose they all go down.
Well, I don't really have an answer for that. I don't really know that we have an approach to that other than to help them understand where the lead is or where it could be coming from.
The lead is in
What
their
they can
line,
do.
is that not correct? It's not in our line.
It could be in our line, our portion of the line, and their portion of the line, but it also could be inside their home. And the
Understood. But our portion of the line goes to the valve, is that correct?
Right,
The street valve.
right.
And we do have some lead lines from the mains to the street valve.
We do.
And they, of course, may well have lead lines from the street valve into the house.
Right.
And so all this is looked at. In other words, it's possible someone has a high lead level, and our line is not lead, but their line is lead.
That is possible. Yeah.
And-
So the customer education piece is really important. The flush sample, honestly, I can't really envision a scenario where a flush sample wouldn't reduce the level of lead in the water because the water in our pipe out in the street doesn't have lead in it.
Correct.
So if we bring that water from the pipe into the house, into the sample, it's not going to have any appreciable amount of lead in it.
We've probably already talked about this, but I forget everything like an hour later. How much of our, from the main in the street to the curb box, how much of that is lead in the city of Abington?
We have confirmed about 5,000, and then there are another 10,000 or so where we don't have a record. So we might assume that they are maybe a worst case scenario, 15,000 total.
From the main to the curb box?
Yep.
And then there's more situations where our line is not lead, but from the curb box into the building is lead.
It could be that or vice versa.
And we have no idea about that number.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, any more on that? There's some good news in there. Okay, moving on to staff comments.
I have just one to follow up on our budget adoption to confirm that our October 31st meeting will be canceled.
Okay. Can we update on vacancy?
Halloween.
I didn't speak to him last week, but I did receive an email from him, and he is hoping to be able to attend our next meeting. He's waiting on a few tests and doctor appointments this week, so.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Good news. Solicitor comments. Any additional comments from the public? At this point in time, we will go into executive session for discussion of personnel issues. Do we expect any kind of action following executive session?
I don't want to fall into a trap of saying no, but I'm not requesting any.
Okay.